Manchester United's interest in Manuel Ugarte from PSG has been making the headlines, but is he really the player we need? In this video, we'll weigh up the pros and the cons of this potential transfer, looking at everything from his playing style to his price tag. And by the end, you should have a bit of a clearer picture as to whether Ugarte is the missing piece for this Manchester United midfield that we need to find to complement Kobbie Mainoo and Bruno Fernandes. Let's get into it. Would Ugarte be a good signing for Manchester United? That's the reason you clicked this video, and I'm going to try and tell you, quite simply, by running through a list I've compiled, all the reasons you can argue for and against signing Ugarte this summer. You let me know in the comments whether you would want him, and I don't think everybody will, but also going to run through some and hear some opinions from Jonathan Johnson, French football expert, on PSG's position on him, and this should pretty much give you a full overview, really, of Ugarte, right? Now, Ugarte early this season, he had a strong start at PSG. Now, these are words from Jonathan Johnson here. This was back in around about October time, rating the signings for PSG that season, and he went down as an A, the most impressive of the acquisitions so far. He helped PSG fans forget Verratti. He's talking about his combative nature in midfield. Ugarte's not there to score goals or provide him, and that really isn't his game, and that's something we're going to speak about in this. But have a quick listen to this first, right? Because this is Jonathan Johnson's opinion.
My
on Ugarte and whether or not he'll stay.
Personal opinion is I think you always need that kind of player in your roster, or at least one kind of player who can do that kind of role. But it is true that I think Ugarte is maybe a little more one-dimensional than we were first led to believe by his first couple of appearances, which leads me to think that if PSG can identify somebody who's maybe a little more versatile and can do a bit more, certainly a bit more on the ball technically than Ugarte, but can also sort of break up play when needed, then that could be a smart deal.
Right. So that pretty much is the overview from Jonathan Johnson on Ugarte. And that's something I'm definitely going to run through in this list. But first things first, let's run through some good points, all right? Because anybody who would just try and say that Ugarte would be a completely abysmal, terrible signing, I think is going a little bit overboard, right? Age, 23. This is the exact sort of profile that Manchester United need to be signing in. I don't think we've been linked with many players over the age of even 27. So Ugarte ticks in that sense. Defensively, he's got an extremely strong game. 4.6 tackles per 90 last season in the French league. 68% success rate. Defensively, very, very strong. And his ball retention is brilliant. 91% pass accuracy last season. He finds his teammates. That is the main thing I would say about Ugarte's qualities in possession. When it comes to recycling possession, when it comes to actually just controlling the ball and having it at his feet, he's good. In terms of progression, that's where we speak about the limitations in a little bit. Physical capacity, look. He's Uruguayan. He's got that South American dog. It's a big part of his game. Strong in the counter press, again, in terms of winning the ball high at the pitch. I always get a little bit confused as to how he sort of went downhill at PSG, which I'll run through in the bad section. But he was brilliant at Sporting Lisbon. We've been linked with Martin Hjulmand, the Danish midfielder who replaced him at Sporting Lisbon. And that one down there, there's potentially a good deal to be done, given that right now his stock is quite low, and, well, buy stock's low, blah, blah, blah. You know how investment works. There's a possibility that United could get a slightly cut price deal. We did it in the live show this morning. I think you all agreed somewhere between 40 and 50 million, which is, well, they paid 60 million euros. So what's that, 52, 53 million? I don't think PSG will be selling him on the cheap. Now, there are good reasons for signing him, and there are bad reasons too, and I'm going to run through these, right? As I said, that first one there, it was a really strong start at PSG, but what happened? What happened to cause the drop-off? And it might be what Jonathan Johnson was talking about there, in terms of, I suppose, PSG and maybe Luis Enrique finding out about the technical limitations of Ugarte. You can see there, progression is a bit of an issue. He's somebody who typically receives the ball facing his goal. You can see only 14.6 of his passes went forward. So you know how some people get frustrated at sideways and backwards passes. That's Ugarte's game, because his game is about, you can see there, winning the ball back and keeping the ball. It's not necessarily about creating opportunities, vertical line breaking passes, and that's where he does have technical limitations on the ball. He's almost like a, more like a traditional number 6. You know how the number 6 role has developed now, and the number 6 is expected to do so much more than simply just win the ball back and be a defensive midfielder. I think that's where the limitations of Ugarte have come through at PSG. And that one there is a little bit of a concern for sure. Dribble passed a fair amount this season, 2.1 times per 90, the 6th most, I believe, in the league in that position. Man United's big problem last season was about our midfield being vacant. When we went forward and we lost the ball high and we were pressing too high and the midfield was vacant and the defence just got ran at straight away. Ugarte would have to, if he was going to be the perfect blend of a midfielder to work alongside Mainu and Bruno, would have to cover that space, wouldn't he? On his own. And then as I said, out of possession, is he exactly what United need? I don't think he is. But I don't know if Manchester United can afford exactly who we need. I would say out of possession, you would say obviously Amadou Onana would be better in that sense. Even João Neves at Benfica has more to that side of his game than probably Ugarte does. And that's probably where is his all-round game the balance that Bruno and Mainu need. I keep saying that. That's the midfielder I want United to sign this summer. The person who complements Mainu and what he can do. He's a number 6-8 hybrid, but he wants to be a number 8. So we need to find somebody who's... I mean, technically, if you just signed it as a number 6, he would basically be a like-for-like replacement of maybe like a younger Casemiro. Defensively. Somebody who you can trust to protect your defence. Somebody who you can trust to receive the ball. But I'm not sure about how he is under pressure. You know, when the team's pressing down, is he equally as reliable? Because PSG last season, well, they're dominant in Liga, right? So he may well have that 91% pass accuracy, but what happens when you play in the Premier League and you've got teams bearing down on you? Would he have the same ability? Would he give him the same results? And that one down there, does he actually want to leave PSG? I mean, it's partly, you got to think of that. I don't know whether he completely does. He's already said on record, I think it was last month, he said, I would like to stay at PSG and I would like to fight for my chances at PSG. But that's like the basic overview. As I said, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, putting in some facts and stats and listening to the opinion there of Jonathan Johnson. And he was saying that at the start it was very good, but the technical limitations of him came through. And that's why he was kind of pushed to the side with the likes of Fabian Ruiz and who else in midfield at PSG? You got Zaire Emery. I think there's one more too. Can't remember who else. But his appearances ended up being more from the bench. What do you think about Ugarte? Overall, that's the basic profile and the basic elements of his game. Do you think he'd be a good signing? You let me know in the comments. Type yes or no. You can leave it as a comment. I don't think he'd be perfect. And my instinct is telling me that Manchester United have looked at him and gone, well, if PSG don't want him, could we get something that's cut price? Because we know full well that our budget is small this summer. And I think that the price of the deal would probably be the defining factor for me. If United could get it maybe on loan with an option or maybe as a lower price, and maybe you complement that by signing Fofana from Monaco, then maybe we're talking. But let me know in the comments below what you think about Ugarte.